Chapter 6. Anon stood before the council of elders, back straight and gaze steady. "I request leave to visit my kin in the northern valleys," he said. The elders glanced at each other, surprise flickering across their wrinkled faces. Anon rarely spoke of family. "It has been many years since I saw them last," Anon continued. "I wish to renew our bonds before time steals the chance." The eldest, Verna, pursed her lips. "Your duties here are important, Anon. We do not have many servants as good as you." Anon inclined his head. "Of course, but I have served faithfully these 7 past years. Surely a short leave is not too much to ask." The elders conferred in hushed tones. At last, Verna sighed. "Very well. You have been an exemplary teaser, but return before the next full moon." Anon bowed. "You have my thanks." As he left the chamber, excitement quickened his pulse. The ruse had worked. Now to prepare for the true journey, to the mountains, to gain the power he needed to be with Kara. Anon hurried to his chamber and packed swiftly. Traveler's garb, climbing gear, rations. His hand lingered on the ancient manual tucked in his bag. With this, he could unlock mana beyond imagining. Soon, he and Kara could be together. But first, he must brave the mountain trials. "I'm coming, Kara," he whispered. "Just wait a little longer." Hoisting his pack, Anon strode out to begin the greatest quest of his life. Anon set out on the long road to the mountains. The journey was arduous, taking him through deep forests and across barren plains. He walked for days, encountering few travelers. At night, he made camp, sleeping fitfully. Strange cries echoed from the darkness, but he avoided confrontation, focused on his goal. Finally, the great peaks loomed ahead, wreathed in mist. Anon's pulse quickened. He had made it. Now, for the real test. He began to climb, scrambling up steep slopes. Icy winds buffeted him. More than once, his handhold broke loose, sending rocks crashing down. But he persevered, inch by inch, until at last he came to a secluded valley, nestled between the highest crags. A perfect place to train, undisturbed. Anon set up a modest camp. Despite the long journey, excitement banished his fatigue. He was ready to begin. Each morning, he rose before dawn to practice the mana techniques. They grew more difficult as he progressed through the manual, requiring intense focus and willpower. The training was grueling, pushing mind and body to the limit. But Anon embraced the challenge. With each new feat, he grew stronger. After long days of practice, Anon would reflect on his progress by the campfire, watching the sparks rise into the night sky. One evening, as he sat gazing at the stars, he heard a sound behind him. He whirled, hand on his knife. "Kara!" he gasped. She stood at the edge of the firelight, smiling shyly. "I missed you. I had to come." Joy leapt in Anon's heart. He embraced her, all his loneliness vanishing. "However did you find me?" he asked. "I could feel you calling," she said. They talked late into the night, reluctant to sleep, treasuring their stolen time together. A bright oasis amid Anon's solitary quest. For one blissful week, they were inseparable, the outside world forgotten. But too soon, Kara had to return before she was missed. Anon bid her a bittersweet farewell, cheered by her promise to come again when she could. Now, more than ever, he was determined to hone his skills. For her, for their future. He would be ready when she returned. Buoyed by new motivation, Anon threw himself back into his intense training, pushing his limits even further. Anon awoke as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees. He stretched his aching limbs and smiled, feeling the surge of power within him. His mana had grown exponentially since Kara's visit. He rose and began his morning ritual of combat forms, moving with a grace and speed that astonished him. The ancient mana construct whispered approvingly in his mind, urging him on. When he finished, Anon conjured a blast of mana, shaping it with ease. The construct chimed. Your control has increased tenfold. You are ready for more advanced techniques. Anon's heart raced. Teach me. The construct proceeded to unlock powerful spells within Anon's mind. His head swam as new knowledge flooded in, dizzying in its scope. This is but a taste of your potential, the construct said. Continue your training, and you will become a force to be reckoned with. Anon smiled, determination etched into every line of his face. I will not stop until I have mastered these gifts, until I can stand beside Kara as an equal. He spent the day experimenting with the new spells, awestruck by their might. A fierce joy rose within him. At long last, he was taking his rightful place in the world. He would return to Kara, a man of power, worthy of her love. As dusk fell, a sudden shriek rang out in the forest. Anon grabbed his knife and ran toward the sound. A three-headed serpent towered before him, venom dripping from its gnashing jaws. Anon bared his teeth in a feral grin. He raised his hands and began to chant, unleashing a blast of mana that lit the night. The serpent reared back, hissing in rage. It lunged toward Anon, a flurry of snapping heads and claws. Anon dodged and spun aside, moving with a speed and grace beyond anything he'd known before. His knife flashed, slicing a deep gash across the serpent's flank. The serpent shrieked in pain, writhing and twisting to face its attacker. Anon chanted another spell, conjuring a spear of solid ice that impaled the creature's central head. The serpent thrashed wildly, two heads twisting to snap at the ice spear, pinning their brother. Anon summoned a blast of fire, searing the left head and causing it to collapse, lifeless, to the ground. Only one head remained. Anon strode forward and grasped it, chanting a binding spell as the serpent futilely tried to jerk away. You have disturbed the peace of this forest for the last time, Anon growled. Now, you will serve as my mount to carry me where I wish and obey my every command. Do you understand? The serpent hissed in fury, but could not resist the magic binding it. Anon smiled, running a hand along the serpent's scaly hide. We will return to the city in style, my friend. He climbed onto the serpent's back, gripping its remaining head to steer it toward the city in the distance. The families would kneel before his power, and none would stand between him and Kara again. The serpent surged into motion with a burst of speed, carrying Anon forward into the future he had won for them both. This is the end of Chapter 6.